and the content has to be fresh. So if you're a CMO, if you're a marketer, you're like, how do I put enough video out? Video on YouTube costs people $20,000 or more per minute to make. That's a crazy amount of, cost that's going in. So you add up all these things and you're like, how do I break through the noise with something authentic, with something that's on brand, something that respects, I own my IP. And that's where I think Adobe's innovation has really stepped in.
Hi, I'm Greg Stuart, CEO of MMA Global, the international nonprofit trade association for CMOs who are focused on architecting a new future of marketing.
I'm Rex Briggs, an author, market researcher, measurement inventor, and entrepreneur.
Hey Rex, what do you think are some of the biggest reasons? I mean, what do we say are some of the biggest reasons that marketers and marketing division companies are still hesitant to really integrate AI? I mean, like, listen, it's a big deal. The announcement yesterday is big. I mean, why aren't we getting after this in our workflows?
Well, definitely people are hard to change. I think it's not the technology, it's the people and the organizations and how much fire they have to adopt new ways of working. I mean, that's certainly part of it. Fear. People are afraid that if they do adopt the things, then they're putting themselves out of a job potentially, and definitely the lawyers. I mean, the legal backlash and the risk, especially if you're in a regulated industry. But even if you're not, I mean, copyright and other things that's probably an issue. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's right. I mean, we might not worry, about it too much and how we're using these tools every day, but for a lot of the enterprise customers, the marketers, and especially the ones that are MMA members, the legality and safety of these issues is a very big roadblock. I mean, I think, obviously corporate, nobody wants to be the one. I had a board member say one time, listen, we're a $50 billion company. I don't want to be the person who took the stock price down a point. And by the way, just calculate how big 1 point means to them. So I think you get an awful lot of that. But I think what's interesting today is that, an ongoing long-standing partner for marketers and especially creative enterprise has been Adobe. And I think they're really trying to, really satisfy that pain point that you can do this sort of, with all the flourish that comes with creative, but also in a very safe sort of way.
Yeah. I mean, I remember, of course, Adobe from when I first started in the internet at Wired. We used it there 30 years ago, and it's still an important part of the tool. So definitely a long legacy, especially for the creative-oriented people in video and animation. And I think what's interesting is when we do our AI training course for MMA Global, we've trained over 6,000 people now, and they've all had to interact with Firefly, which is Adobe's product. And the reason why we do that is, number one, it's a good product. It's free. You can try it, and you can use a certain number of credits to see what it does. But we use it to show people that aha moment. We have them take an animal that they like, and we have them take a favorite artist or a style of art that they like. And people just love it because, like, wow, there's a parrot that's in kind of the Dali style or whatever. And I don't know who has a parrot. I think most people have dogs and cats.
Rex,
whatever.
Maybe
but somebody did
your
that.
Somebody
in
the house where you have a parrot.
Exactly. Right. Are you a pirate? What are you doing? But somebody did that example, which is why it sticks in my mind.
Okay.
But the cool thing about with Adobe is, again, it's a great product, and we have the founder of Firefly, which I'm super excited to talk about because this is just such an important, exciting. I'll let you do the introduction.
Yeah, well, listen, what's so exciting about this is that we do have Hannah Elsakr today, who's the Vice President, New GenAI Business Ventures at Adobe, who's been leading the charge and helping them to adopt to a creative future and helping marketers follow along. So, Hannah, welcome.
Thank you so much. Great to be here with you guys.
Well, I'm excited to hear more about what you're doing with Firefly. I mean, you helped found that and build that team and that group. And I think one of the things that the reason why we use that example also in the training is that you have a ethically sourced content for GenAI, which is potentially a problem for some of the big enterprise companies and the marketers we oftentimes work with if you're going to be taking these ads into production and putting them out in the real world, right? I mean, that's kind of a big deal. Right?
Yeah, I mean, we have 300 researchers who've been working on AI and hard problems for 10 years. lots of patents, lots of papers. So when we joke and say I'm really more of the one who brought to market the enterprise solution for generative AI. If you think back in the day, which was not that long ago, but light years in AI time, 2022, at the end of 22 is when the first really commercial models started coming out. We released ours in early 23. And pretty quickly we found, Rex, what you were saying, which is our enterprise customers, marketing teams, creative teams, were coming to us and saying, we want a solution from you for the enterprise that we know we can trust and is responsible and is commercially safe, and I can use for final pixel and I can use for final frame and not kind of worry about all of that. So that's been the journey we've been on. It's only been 2 years, which is kind of incredible. And fastest adopted tech that I've seen in my decades in technology. We're at 26 billion assets generated by Firefly. I've stopped updating the number because it's 1 billion assets per month. I mean, just think about that volume of work. And thank you, Rex, because I guess your team is part of the ones generating images. So we're
helping,
that.
right? I guess
you're helping the billion.
We're telling them where to go, what to do. Right?
Creating the parrots and the dogs with hats on them. Yes.
Hey, but Hannah, on the very off chance that somebody here has not really been paying attention, because we could have some newbies and stuff, can you just break down what the Firefly product does at Adobe, just so we make sure everybody knows?
Absolutely. I'm hoping you already know and love the other parts of our business, the Creative Cloud, think of Photoshop, our Document Cloud, think of Acrobat, and our Experience Cloud, which is all of our Martech products like our CDP and our Journey Optimizers and our analytic tools. Like I said, about 2 years ago, we brought a generative product to market called Firefly. So that's our family of generative models. They're all commercially safe, as you both have mentioned, which just means, if you just want to geek out for 1 second, at the very bottom of the infrastructure layer, the data layer, all the data that went into the training of our models, we licensed. So we either paid a creator. We have a stock business that you may know of, stock photography and stock video, but everyone who contributed got compensated, and we used other material that was in Creative Commons that might have had copyright expired. So everything from a nutrition label, if we want to talk calories for a second, everything that went in was clean. And therefore, we can stand by the fact that everything that comes out is commercially safe for use, and we indemnify large enterprises and marketing teams as needed.
Got it. And so when you build on that idea of the content that you have, you've also introduced the flexibility to use other models. One of the things I noticed is that you can use GPT or Google's Imagine if you want to. And so how have you mixed together? Because I think one of the challenges is the space is moving so fast. There's so many new versions, and so you've given this really interesting flexibility within Firefly. Yeah,
I mean, we're the OG of the creative workflow and marketing workflow space, right?
100%. I remember when Photoshop, I was in an agency when Photoshop came out. It was such a big deal. Yeah.
That was back when there was black and white pictures, Greg?
No, what we used to do, Rex, it's funny. I mean, I'll tell you what this is. So now you're going to make me do Wayback Machine. Sorry, Hannah, I'm older, so I remember all this bullshit. So here's what happened, actually, is that we used to have to send out typography to the typography house. So a bicycle messenger would come and pick up the boards for the print ad, because that's all we really had at the time. And you would send out, and then they would bring back the type, and then the art director would sit there with a little sort of razor and cut the thing up and sort of figure out the kerning on each layer. It's crazy that's used to happen. Then Adobe Photoshop came along and says, oh, wow, this is a whole new world order in a Mac. Yeah. It's crazy.
So since he's gone back to the Wayback Machine, you're going to have to indulge me on like some history lessons, right?
Go.
This is a tectonic shift. Generative is a tectonic shift, and we'll get into the competitive nature of that or the advancement. But if we go in the way back machine of technology shifts in creativity, think of the camera in the 1800s, right? Like people thought painting was dead at that point in time. Actually, a French painter, Delacourt, said, yeah, it's over. We know that's not true. It just basically opened up like a Cambrian explosion of styles and artists and vectored off. Greg, you were open to Photoshop, but if you go back to the 90s when Photoshop was launched, there were some folks in agency who said, I will not use that tool. It is destroying craft.
Yeah,
but,
crazy.
Hey, by the way, if you didn't learn Photoshop, you may have missed something called digital marketing and the internet. that came around in the 2000s. So I feel like we've been here before. And Rex is right. Like, the first thing new technology shifts are met with are fear, and then maybe the adoption around the familiar workflows that we understand and making those better. You asked a question around how we think about opening our ecosystem. So we are the OG in every creative process, whether you are making a Hollywood big screen film, or you are doing TV ads, or you're doing banners, for website. We're in that process. And so we believe that we understand that deeply, and probably more deeply than anyone else. Having the models to support that, first we started with Firefly, of course, because people want a commercially safe and creative, community-friendly option. But I did get feedback from other folks who were, agencies a great example. Hey, I'm doing a lot of pitch work. And when I'm doing pitch work, which is never going to go to final production push, I'd like some other choices, right? Because some things are highly stylized. Maybe it's a different style. I want to use a different paintbrush, if you will. And so, we opened the market. We opened our ecosystem to welcome those things, to give those creators and agency pros choice. And they kept telling me, I don't want to leave your tools. So that's why we welcome those in. It's symbiotic in many ways.
It's smart too, strategically, because it keeps you in the people in the tools, in your tools. And so I think that's as the value chain collapses from what Greg was describing earlier, with all these different pieces that used to have to be done separately and discreetly. My big theory is that AI is compressing the value chain so that you do fewer things in fewer tools and get faster value, right? I mean, it's amazing how much you can accelerate the speed that it takes to resize all the ads that you might have, because your tool makes that, almost instantaneous, right?
Yeah.
And then how fast, you go from idea to production.
Exactly. So just take resize, which I love that you brought up, because that's the creative drudgery that every pro is like, please take that off my desk. Nobody wants to push pixels to take a 1x1 into, a tower or something else. Now with generative AI, smart generative AI that can expand, or smart crop, you don't have to push pixels on those kind of mundane tasks. We did this for ourselves, Rex, in our own Adobe Black Friday campaign last year. And we reduced the time to market and cost by 60%. All those teams, by the way, had a lot of other things on their list that strategically they could go do instead of pushing pixels on resize. And so that's one no-brainer use case, that if a marketer has not stepped into the GenAI circle, start with something like resizing. Estee Lauder is doing it for brands. We're doing it for lots of applications. So that's a no-brainer.
Hey, Heather, let me even amplify that too from just an Adobe standpoint. So it's funny. So as I mentioned earlier, Heather Freeland, who I think she's just recently leaving Adobe, but she has been on the board here. So I interviewed her for my other podcast, right? And Heather sort of articulated to me, I was asking her what the challenge for marketers going forward. She goes, listen, the volume of ads that or content needs to be created is unbelievable. And she said, we just put together a campaign that had 5,000 creative assets. I mean, that's crazy.
That's low, Greg.
That's
low. No, I mean, that's probably a B campaign, that she's doing. Like, her Black Friday campaigns were 15,000 assets in 30 languages, right? God. So, and how were you doing it before, right? You were doing it pretty manually, one by one, even with help with tools like
teams of people all night long, I think would be the answer.
Teams of people all night long. And, maybe just to step into this, in our case, nobody is out of work, right? We have so much we could do, so many products to support that never see the light of day, or they have stale assets.
I think that whole out of work thing is a dummy. I think the people. I just think
say more, because I still hear people telling me,
it really bugs me. I'll tell you what. Hey, Rex, you and I haven't talked about this. So Hannah, let me talk to Rex for a minute. So I'm just kidding.
I'll leave, get a cup of coffee. I'll be back in a minute,
go
guys.
Get a coffee. No, listen, I think it's a dumb issue because listen. So I'm a CEO of a company. Rex was just formerly a CEO of a company here just not that long ago. I don't know, Rex, I don't know about you, but I have a ton of other things I would like to get to of major magnitude.
I 100%
And
agree.
the
In fact,
only reason I don't get to it is because I'm too tired and already work 7 days. Like I just
people are
can't
too busy. Yeah.
But if I could do it all faster, I'll come up with 10 more ideas. So I think the idea of letting work. And by the way, at the end of the day, too, if you're an economist, part of my background is that the only productive element, the only economic element in society is humans, right? There is no, you can increase productivity, but it all has to come back to human. Now, unless they're going to change the economic models going forward, maybe they'll figure that out with something with robots or something else. I don't think it's anytime near. Like, I got more ideas. Let's just get this stuff done faster.
Exactly. The more
Yeah,
idea
it's
part.
crazy.
So, I'm at Claritas with, there was a little bit of fear because I basically said everybody has to learn AI, and we've been doing these hackathons, and the part is like I do hear these announcements of these CEOs saying that they're going to lay off 10% of their workforce and all this other parts. I'm like, that's such a bad move because if you can take that 10% of the workforce, free them up to actually tackle some of the backlog ideas that you're not getting to, that is a way faster way of growing your company.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
since
because
Greg's
companies are
an
doing such a great
economist-
job at satisfying customers now. It's like, that's what's nuts. Like people, don't you understand? Consumers are irritated with you most of the time. Why don't you figure out how you better satisfy them? Right.
Since you're an economist, right? Just think back to the Industrial Revolution. Did anybody lose
I'm
a
not
job?
that old. I'm not that old. I mean, please.
So
I realize
people were saying, "Hey, I'm
be
the
fooled.
Remember when you turned on that steam gen, Greg?
Remember- that thing?
Remember the first light bulb, Greg? Do you remember how exciting that was?
employment quadrupled, right? Like we went from 2.5 million.
Oh, is that
jobs to
true?
10
I
million
didn't know
jobs.
that. Is that true for the
Absolutely,
industry?
absolutely.
Wow.
And there will be a dislocation. Like we should all be cognizant. Like if you don't
people
have a
have
skill or
changed what they're
change,
gonna do,
there's a
but-
dislocation, of course. You gotta learn. You
Hey,
gotta
Hannah, can I ask you a funny question though? So marketers struggle with this. Any big corporation struggles with it. We kind of entered into this thing about talking about the risk of change. But and I don't know if you don't, I don't know. There's inside conversation here. I'm kind of curious though what Adobe did when you saw this coming and Shantanu said, "Hey, Hannah, listen, you could have taken a position to defend the products you had because some of what you're doing now is competitive to the stuff you already had. Like you had to really you had to have had a huge amount of risk in changing the corporation." Do you remember that back?
Yeah. So, I mean, it's funny because one thing that Shantanu is not afraid of is disrupting ourselves. Like
Okay.
he has been, he's the one who took us from shrink wrap to the cloud.
Oh,
right?
okay. So he'd been through the cycle
He gets it.
before.
He's kind
gets
of
the
like,
innovator's
do
dilemma.
Do you want to be disrupted, or do you want to, be the leader for the next decade? So it wasn't. I don't actually ever remember anybody debating that particular choice. The thing we did debate, and he and the executive team took a lot of time thinking about, is how do we want to train the models? Back to my point earlier, we could have scraped the web and gone, just like some other models went, but we decided because of our standing in the marketing community, the creative community, that was a choice that he really led the charge on, which is, we're going to restrict what we use, and we're going to be proud of the responsibility that we have in this industry.
Do you think that's hurt you in any ways in terms of the speed at which you can move, or do you think that's just been all upside?
I believe that, especially for the market we're talking about at the enterprise level, and for marketers who are working with global brands that have reputation risk, that they may dabble here and there with experiments with lots of other things, but routinely I have CMOs, CTOs, chief creative officers coming to me and saying, I will only scale front-facing and production-wise to the consumer with an Adobe model behind it. So I think Rex, like we're in early days. I don't want to call the inning yet, but I feel like we made a really smart choice.
I think so too. I think there's good foresight because I think that there's coming a backlash. I don't think it's going to be a massive backlash or terribly strong or will disrupt things. But just like in the industrial revolution, where we got the word saboteur, which comes from what? Taking the wood shoe and throwing it into the gears of the machine, right? I think that's the derivation of the word. We'll probably have some of that here. And being able to say that you're building AI to represent you, not replace you, to the creators is a wonderful statement, right? And it's foresight because even though you might be able to go, like you said, for a pitch, you might be able to go faster with something else, or maybe get a little bit more of the design that you want. There are artists that are poisoning their digital art. There's programs that will help you change just a few of the pixels. So when you try to prompt it, you don't get what was part of the image in the prompt. It actually helps make the models worse. So I think that when I saw you do that, I'm like, you know what, that's really good foresight. It'll make it easier and safer for big enterprises to adopt. And it's a great statement to humanity in the community that you serve to say, we're trying to use AI in a way that helps make a better world. Yes, things are going to transform and change, but I mean, what do you think?
Yeah,
what do you think?
one of the big changes, I love all my lawyers, but generally I don't see them that early in product development or in customer conversations. And now I love having the lawyers up front because they are trying to think through, like, where are we from a customer side and other things. Like we did this incredible activation with Gatorade and Pepsi right before Black Friday last year, where they had this AI custom bottle. It may still be up on site to purchase, premium priced, gorgeous designs. But Rex, if you wanted, a man running on the moon as part of your design aesthetic, like, you could have that. That's the badge of the athlete. And of course, the lawyers wanted to be involved because they're like, you're going to do an AI generated bottle. Like, what does that look like? And the only solution they could greenlight was Adobe, of course, in that process, because they understood both from a safety standpoint, but also we have a lot of responsible filters, so not only will you never see a trademark that's not supposed to be there, but also you're not going to see anything that's not safe for work. And that was really important to them in the context of who the athletes are, young athletes that might be, at the website purchasing a product. So part of the change, which is really interesting, is different players at the table. It's not just the chief marketing officer. So tip number one, if you want to try some AI at scale, make sure you bring other people along. Of course, your CTO or CIO, but also get your chief legal involved, so they're understanding the choices you're making as you go along the path.
Yeah, and I heard the best thing about attorneys. Somebody told me this. They go, attorneys are the brakes that allow you to go faster. And the meaning is, the reason you can drive so fast in any auto race, is just take F1. The reason you can drive so fast in F1 is not necessarily just because of the engine. It's because of the braking power. Because if you can't brake that thing really fast, you cannot drive that fast.
I'm going to take that quote back to my lawyers. They're going to love that, Greg.
Yeah, they're going to love. I know. That's why I gave it to you. Hey, Hannah, let's talk a little bit about. So where do you? I think it would be interesting maybe to hear from you. I think the listener would appreciate. Like, so what's in store next? Like, what's happening into the future? Like, how do they start to think about? I'm not sure how to narrow in that question, but like, what do you think you have to build into the models to really help them to realize the full potential of this? And in our case, creating advertising and marketing content.
Yeah, and let me go there in a second. But let me start with the fact that most CMOs have told me, and we have a survey that confirms this. They are asked to do 5x the content that they were last year, and their CFOs, just like our CFO has said to Laura, like, hey, you're flat budget, maybe you're down budget, but you got to do 5x the content, right? So there's a math problem.
Same goals, fewer people. No, figure it out.
Right. So there's a math problem, a combinatorics math problem we've got going on here. And honestly, safe generative AI is the unlock. Otherwise, there's no way you can do that amount of content. That's kind of problem statement number one. Another problem that we are seeing, not a problem, it's an opportunity. People want video. I read something that people are up to 12 hours and 42 minutes of video, and it's finally plateaued because unless you're not going to sleep, you literally cannot consume any more video in your day.
Are we talking about my kids on TikTok, the 12-hour thing? Is that
yes,
what the daily TikTok? Yeah. Okay.
And the content has to be fresh. So if you're a CMO, if you're a marketer, you're like, how do I put enough video out? Video on YouTube costs people $20,000 or more per minute to make. That's a crazy amount of cost that's going in. So you add up all these things, and you're like, how do I break through the noise with something authentic, with something that's on brand, something that respects I own my IP, and that's where I think Adobe's innovation has really stepped in. So not only can you just do more fresh campaigns because you need to refresh social 3 times a week, and you've got, I don't know, thousands and thousands of SKUs that you support. That's just start with those basics, right? So like a lot of retailers that I work with, just start with that. Then you're probably not doing enough video, and you're not doing enough social short clip video because it's cost prohibitive. What we've taken as an innovation and a technology is we can take an approved still image and take it to motion for you. 5-second video out of that. I mean, whereas you would have had to wait for a Premiere Pro or an After Effects person, you can do that literally with a click of a button in Firefly. So, I mean, there's a lot more coming, more modalities, audio, music, sound effects, vector. But even just getting started with what is available right now would change the game for marketing.
So on the video one, let's stay with that for a minute. So you've got the image to video. Some of the competitors, Sora, VO3 from Google. There's Runway. There's lots of other options out there that you're competing against. The images are getting really incredibly photorealistic. We're seeing people taking video, and they are becoming the AI influencers, I mean, you have to read the fine print in the TikTok ad to know that was AI generated, but that's happening now pretty regularly. Is the challenge now just to go from 5 seconds to 10 seconds, or adding more time or cohesion, or what's the photorealistic? One thing I still see is that the challenge now is getting the text overlay to really be good. You almost have to tell it not to do a text overlay and do that in kind of fix that in post, or you do that separately. Tell me a little bit where you see we're at in terms of truly real-time video creation becoming.
So I think that actually, if you look at the average media, it's a series of 8-second clips strung together, right? Like generally with frame rates and scene cuts, you're at 5 to 8 seconds. There's some particular long shot type of things. So I don't think it's about time extension, Rex, per se. I think it's about better storytelling. So I think earlier, I don't know if we were talking about this, there will be a lot of AI fluff out there. And what we're promoting is not push a prompt and get a story. Like, we would like the human ingenuity to stay in the middle and direct obviously the narrative and the shot blocking and all those types of things. These are just tools. And I don't want to diminish it to say it's just a paintbrush. It's not just a paintbrush. It's a very powerful enabler and an assistant. But essentially, you're still the creative director of that story. And so the innovations that are coming are much more about how do I get my final vision realized? And Greg, you mentioned to me earlier, like there may be 100 ideas in someone's sketchbook that they couldn't get to because they only have so many hours in a day. You can actually play out those 100 ideas, whether it's internal studio or pitching to a client or, hero art or whatever it is. You can finally actually get to all those ideas. It still takes narrative and craft.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Hannah, maybe talk for a little bit for the uninitiated. I'm curious because I'm not on the front lines of creative at any time. But what's happening? What are some of the challenges that have gone on that are now being hopefully solved, or you think are about to solve? So, listen, like I know, like if you create a character, can you keep that character from episode to episode, or whatever that might be, from storyline to storyline? There's a whole bunch of stuff with sort of keeping context too. So when you look at something, then when you turn away, you bring back to AI. Does it still show? I don't know what all the technical time. Can you kind of give us a review of some of what you're really having to solve to make video even that much more powerful?
Okay, I'm going to break the fourth wall for a second. Can you hear the music lesson started? I've closed the door, but you can't hear it?
Can't hear it. Yeah, I know.
Okay, great. I just wanted to check before I was like, pipe down
singing
the
over a
viola.
violin.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe you could sing it. You could sing it now. That'd be fine.
Yeah. Okay, and Greg, just prompt me again. The question was around creative challenges, right?
So I'll tell you what I'm asking. My question won't stand. What I'm trying to get at is, I know that there's been a series of problems that have had to be solved in order to make video really go into the future. And we saw some of that. Rex and I were going back and forth on it. Was it VO, Rex? That we saw like they're keeping context for that environment the entire time. So no matter where you move and look, you come back. They still held that context, even if you as the user just change it, which is revolutionary to me. Or there's what was it? Oh, we also went through an issue because we were doing an experiment here. like keeping, if you build a if you build a character, a
Right.
person, represent, then how do you make sure that person shows up the same way in another episode, another month later, and doesn't start to look
Yeah.
different? Because we're way past the 6 fingers now. Right? We don't have 6 fingers. That was a problem we had to solve a year and a half ago. But
That was The Princess Bride. That was a great movie. I mean, I don't know why we're dogging the 6-fingered guy. Like, he's a great character. But to your question
Yeah.
of character consistency, so there's a new product that we are offering on kind of a limited basis for our enterprise customers called Firefly Foundry. This is a deep tuning generative AI managed service we do together. It basically takes Adobe's foundational models, which are safe. It lets you bring in franchise data, IP data that you own. We retrain that model for you, and you own the output. So part of the reason these kind of off-the-shelf models don't work is because they may know a character because they scraped it. Like, they may know Iron Man. I'll just pick that out of, because they've scraped it off the web. But they don't know his world. Right? And so they cannot actually generate anything in the world of Iron Man. When we work closely with the franchise, whether it's a media and entertainment or a brand who says, I have a particular shot style, a creative style, we're able to construct an entire world that understands characters, props, motion styles, right? Shot styles, and it essentially understand that taxonomy, Greg, so we never lose that character. We always know how that character dresses. It lets you ideate off of it. And by the way, I'm working with a lot of big brands who have told me, yeah, I know I'm a consumer products company, but I really think of myself as a media company now. So I'm trying to create shoulder content, YouTube content, backstories on these kids' products, animation. So they're essentially saying the consumer product is just the beginning. I need, back to the 12 hours and 42 minutes we're watching, I need lots of media and engagement and experiences that surround the world of my products.
It's kind of astonishing how many challenges or how many things need to be solved in order, and how fast they are being solved. That's what I'm trying to get at. Like, I'm kind of like, wow, we've gone so dramatically far at this point. And then what's next? What else has to happen? 'Cause I don't think people realize, if you get into this, how hard these problems are to solve and how close we are to tackling so many of them.
And this is where, like, programs like this and the work you guys are doing, I don't want to dumb it down, but it's like, let's just figure out a use case. Every company needs to figure out the couple of use cases. Most CFOs are done giving money for experiments. Like, that was nice in 23. They have basically shut that off in 2025, right? They're saying, show me an ROI case at scale where AI has done something for you. I gave you our stat. We know we save 60% in production time to get out 15,000 assets in 30 languages. A CFO is going to sign a check for that, right? You can do more. You can go faster. Localization is an easy use case. Personalization is an easy use case. The Gatorade case that I told you, custom bottles at premium pricing, flying off the shelf for Christmas. That is a different way of engaging people. It's basically handing the brand to the consumer and saying, you tell me what the brand is. That's new personalization. So I think there's a lot of things staring right in front of us if we could just break down to the use case. And of course, because we have pattern recognition now, I've worked with hundreds of companies that have started doing this. We know, like, these are the use cases that are going to land. If you're not localizing, I work with, sports teams who are like, my next market is Spanish speaking. I do everything in English. Great. AI can actually help us translate everything in the audio print, lip sync and get you into more markets for expansion. So that's where I think about your business goal, think about what your growth areas are and the challenges, and then think of the tool as in support of that.
When you dive into the business case, let's just go a bit deeper to that. You're describing a world where you have a lot more personalization, a lot more consumer control influencing that personalization. What do you see as being the change that companies have to adopt, and what percentage do you think we're at that world that you're describing? You've given, there's that old was it Gibson quote that I love, which is the future is already here. It's just unevenly distributed. And you've got Gatorade and a few people doing that. But we're, what are we, 1% there, a 0.5% there, 10% there?
I don't want to guess, because here's what I think. I think the surveys that are out there would tell you, whether it's Forrester or Gartner, or 75% or more of companies have used AI in some way, right? They're using AI and they're experimenting. But once you go, and I will misquote this, so we'll have to look it up, but once you go to who is doing it at scale, that number drops dramatically.
A lot, yeah.
A lot. Yeah. And so this is my point of giving you these names of like real brands and people who have leaned into it. Coca-Cola, they did a project with us around Project Fission, which is style IDs. Like, these are big brands. They have a lot to lose if they get it wrong.
Yeah.
And so for them to lean in, work very close, Adobe too, like we're working very closely. We have a very high creative aesthetic. It has to be on point. And so what I would say is it's time to lean in. It does take change management. It does take a courageous sponsor to raise their hand and say, I believe this is the way of the future. I'm not going to ignore Photoshop or the invention of the camera. I'm going to get on board and figure this out. And then pick the use cases, figure them out, start on the path, and start scaling things. Because as soon as you get a 60% ROI on something, you're like, I could do more of that for sure.
Hey, Hannah, by the way, the 60% doesn't even come close to what Rex and I think, based on experiments we've done, about what the value of some of this is.
Yeah,
I love it.
We're seeing now in rudimentary personalization 3 to 4x improvements.
I love that.
Unbelievable. In fact, it's funny you mention that, because when Rex first came to me with an idea that we would, and this is what MMA does. We take these theses, these ideas, and we run experiments with marketers against them and try to sort of build knowledge so we can guide marketers about how big an opportunity is this, so you should invest in more accelerated. We're just trying to help them accelerate, right? And Rex came to me and said, listen, he goes, I don't know, Rex, you remember what you said, like 50, you said plus 50%, maybe plus 65%. I think were the numbers you originally gave me, right?
Which is a lot higher than what you normally see in experiments. So I thought that was aggressive.
And you guys know the old TV days. It's like, if you got $1.10 on $1 of spend, you were like, jumping up and down.
High-fiving each other.
You were high-fiving each other. If you can get a 5x spend on 5x return on $1 of spend, why wouldn't you do that?
We're seeing the latest study we had was for AT&T. It was plus, and it was, again, rudimentary personalization, right, Rex? I mean, really good machine learning on the ad placement, but rudimentary personalization, and was a very. And the last study we did was for AT&T was plus 272%. That is insane.
Okay, so I'll
really
tell
drop
you,
everything, everybody. Let's go. Yeah, right now.
I'll tell you a funny story, right?
Go.
Because the last decade, we have spent on Martech. We're laying pipes for Martech. I need a CDP. I need a journey optimizer. I need analytics. I need blah, 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 right? As soon as we had all the pipes laid, we were realizing there's not enough content to push through the pipe.
Yeah, that's right.
I worked with one clothing retailer who was the CEO pinged the team and was like, I got a women's item in my email. And so they looked, they thought maybe it's an Adobe Analytics problem or Adobe, Journey. No, the journeys are all right. And when they went back to the dam, they realized they only have a very limited set of men's clothing shot from studio. And so the heuristic says, don't show him the same thing twice in a week. So the next best item was a women's item. That tells you, right? So like, this is hilarious, but it's not hilarious because you did the Martech investment. We are there, and now you don't have enough content. And who wants to see a women's item when you're actually shopping for men's items?
Hannah, let's go back. I've often said, and I realize we're going to run out of time here soon, but I got one for you. So, we had somebody else in the guest who knew a lot about AI, just was an AI leader, expert, whatever. But we just asked him a dumb question, like, what do you think is the killer app here? And he immediately said personalization. So, and you referenced that here too. I think that, there's a lot to be said for that because, advertising has kind of abused consumers' interest in that quid pro quo to like, hey, we're going to take up some of your time and then show you something that's not relevant. Just so beyond annoying. We've got to stop that completely. Okay, so here's my question. And then then you take like Ryan Reynolds' sort of orientation in the world, right? He says it's all about fast advertising. If I said that right. It's basically, how do you pick up signals? Okay, so where this has all got to go is how close are we to creating video ads almost on the fly that could be served into an environment based on news automatically or insight perspective, whatever's happening in the world, like almost immediately? How close are we to that?
Okay, so I think generation, we're not there yet, because if you've ever sat and generated video, you're gonna wait 10 to maybe to 20 seconds.
That's what I'm asking. Right.
At the edge, that's not happening today. Also, for real-time game creation, this is another space that I'm in. That's not happening today. It's too heavy. Now, what we have learned is how to hack that, right? So whether with fragments or archive, so you could do semantic search on an archive. Let's say the news today was about popes and puffy jackets, right? Like you could go and in the archive semantically search lots of puffy jackets quickly, or lots of things, whereas before you would send an intern into the closet looking for clips of things. Does this make sense to you? So you can batch process a lot of this in the background, and I call this reuse and recycle.
That's where your DAM comes in.
It'll feel very fresh. You'll figure out what is responsive, and then you'll go and say, I need to remix these items. They're really responding to this particular shot style, the way the product is placed, this color scheme, and you can remix that. Really easy things. Refresh for every season. People shoot on white background in e-com. Like that's the most boring, unengaging thing. What if you changed it for graduation, back to school, Halloween? Nobody does it, and I know that because I used to run, in CPG, brands. It's like we don't have money to do that, Hannah. So let's just shoot it on white background. You can do it now. You can do it now.
And I love your hack. I love your hack because it is like, don't let perfect get in the way of progress. And Greg's vision is right, but the technology, because of the latency in generation, means that you need to use a lot faster things. I will say that the Google's more recent breakthrough on showing the DeepMind work on that worlds part where every frame is being generated and has cohesion. That was the first one where we're like, okay, well maybe we're a lot closer than I thought to potentially getting to Greg's vision. But I think you can do so much now if you have a DAM. By that I mean a digital asset management library, well organized and designed to work as Hannah was saying. So do what Hannah says. That's the way to do it. And if you're hearing a little bit of violin music in the background, that is our new outro music, compliments of Hannah's daughter.
It's new. Hannah's children actually brought that, yes.
We
probably need to get some legal waivers, so please take care of that because it's all about ethical sourcing of content. And with that,
believe me, if you want to buy their violin music, I will let you buy that for sure.
Okay, so with that, that's it for this episode of Decoding AI for Marketing. I'm Rex Briggs.
And I'm Greg Stuart.
Be sure to catch all our episodes, plus subscribe, follow, rate, and review in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app, or check us out on YouTube. You can get transcripts and more information on our website, decodingaiformarketing.com.
And if you want to learn any more about MMA and the work that we're doing around AI, then please go to MMAglobal.com. Thanks for listening. Hannah, thank you for being here. That was really awesome. You were great.
Thank you, Hannah.
A pleasure. Thank you, guys.